Hello and welcome back to the KA-50 Black Shark. In this video, decided to break this video up actually. In this particular video, I'm going to actually just basically do ground school stuff. I'm going to show a little bit of cockpit familiarization and the basics on how a helicopter works. And then the video after this, I'll go over basic flight. To start off with, I want to make a correction to my last video. I had forgotten to uncage the backup SAI in the last video before I said we were ready for takeoff. So you do want to do that. You get it just by rotating the knob until the uncages, and then you recenter it by eyeball. And that's now uncaged and ready. And also, I was calling this thousands, and based on the scale, I'm pretty confident that it's actually percent. I haven't looked it up, but I'm pretty sure this is actually percent of RPM. And actually, it looks like a percent sign there, so that's what I'm guessing. So when I was saying 2,000, I should have been saying 20%. No practical difference, but it would be correct to say percent rather than thousands. Okay, other than that, let's talk about the basics of helicopters. Basically in a helicopter you have three primary controls. You have your cyclic, which is this, your anti-torque pedals, which are down there, and your collective, which is over here. Let's talk about how they work. The collective is the easiest to understand, so we'll talk about that first. Basically, your blades, as I'm sure most of you already know, are basically just rotating wings, thin rotating wings. And when you increase the collective, you're increasing the pitch on those rotating wings, thereby increasing the lift. So collective coming up translates to more lift being generated by your rotor cones, making you go up or come down less fast. The cyclic's a little bit hard to explain. The cyclic basically asymmetrically changes the pitch on your rotor blades, and by that I mean it tilts what's called a swash plate, which through clever linkages causes asymmetrical pitch changes in your rotor. So if I push right on the cyclic, if the ground crew yells at me, don't worry about it, I have ground power hooked up because I'm at idle for this. If I push left on right on my cyclic, I'm actually tilting the swash plate in such a way that the rotor blades, as they come to the right side of my aircraft, are decreasing in pitch, thereby generating less lift, while the rotor blades, as they come into the left side of my aircraft, are increasing in pitch, thereby increasing lift. This creates an asymmetrical lift from your rotor cone, with more lift on the left side than the right side, thereby rolling you towards the right. The opposite happens if you push left cyclic, and it basically works the same way if you push forward and aft cyclic. Forward cyclic causes more lift in the rotor blades near the back of the helicopter than from the front of the helicopter, thereby pitching you down. That's what the cyclic does. It controls your roll axis and your pitch axis, just like a plane. It works a little differently than a plane, but the same axes are controlled. Your anti-torque pedals work a little bit differently in the Black Shark than they do in most conventional helicopters with a boom and tail rotor. The anti-torque pedals, the Black Shark is a coaxial helicopter, meaning that there are two rotor cones spinning in opposite directions. The anti-torque pedals basically, and by spinning in opposite directions, they're trying to produce torque in opposite directions. The anti-torque pedals can control how much torque is being produced by the top rotor compared to the bottom rotor, thereby changing the net torque that's affecting the helicopter. So you can cancel out all torque by making them producing the same amount of torque in opposite directions, so you have no net torque. Or you can increase torque in one direction by causing one of them to be producing more torque than the other. Like if I were to push right pedal, I would be producing more torque towards the right than towards the left, which would cause my helicopter to yaw to the right. Basically, your yaw axis, similar to a plane. Again, it's going to operate a little bit differently, but it's similar to a plane. Now, in forward flight, things are actually much closer to a plane than when you're in a hover. In forward flight, when you push right cyclic, you're actually going to yaw the aircraft a little bit to the right as well, due to what I call the weathercocking effect. You'll still want to coordinate with some pedal, depending on the situation. How much pedal depends on the situation, how much cyclic you're entering in to get a nice smooth turn. And same thing with left, obviously. Also, when you're turning, just like in a plane, some of your lift is being used to change your direction of flight, so you're going to want to increase the cyclic a little to counter that, to make your lift vector bigger, so even though you're displacing some of the lift from straight down, you're not losing altitude, unless you don't care about losing altitude, but for a level turn, you're going to want to increase your collective a little bit. Okay, so that's basically how the cyclic works in forward flight. And the nice thing about the coaxial helicopter is your anti-torque pedals remain effective at much higher speeds than they would in a tail rotor design. So you can be going forward at a pretty good clip and still crank the helicopter sideways. Your path of flight won't change, and you're going to be basically putting a big bloody air brake in there, because your whole body the aircraft's going to be impacting the air as you're traveling now sideways. So things to keep in mind. At a hover, things are a little bit different. You can do rotor turns again, pedal turns to yaw the aircraft. You might get a little yaw coupled in. You can just cancel it out with the cyclic. And at a hover, you can actually side slip with left and right cyclic. Again, you might get a little yaw coupled in, but you can just cancel it out with a little bit of pedal. That's the basic controls of the helicopter. When I do the flight, you'll see it in action, get a little bit more of an idea about it, but that's how you control the helicopter. The Black Shark, okay, now I'm going to go over some basic controls, and I'm going to go over the autopilot and trim, or basic instruments. I'm not going to go over a lot of the instruments, just the real essentials, which is mainly the VSI, vertical speed indicator, very, very important. This will indicate your rate of climb or descent. At the moment it's at 0, meaning I'm not going anywhere vertically, naturally, considering I'm on the ground and not moving forward, or backward or sideways, whatever. But if the needle's pointing up, I'm climbing. If the needle's pointing down, I'm descending. This white line, if I remember correctly, and I think I do, is rather important. This needle is descending below this white line. If you're near or at a hover, you risk entering a vortex ring state, which I'm not going to explain. You can look in the manual if you want. They explain it quite well. But it basically means you stall because of how the air is going through the rotors, you stall. It's very bad. If you're close to the ground, you're pretty much dead. So you do not want that to happen. So if you're near or at a hover, you really have to watch your vertical speed. It's critically important. What else? Let's go over a little bit of the ABRIS. The ABRIS, I knew more about it at one point because I was actually starting to read the manual, which I don't have an iPod, so I have to do it on the computer, or an Android tablet, which at some point I have to get. So I have too many thick flight sim PDFs now that I really want to read. I can't stand reading them at the computer. But I have forgotten pretty much everything I used to know about this. But I know enough that I can basically show you how to navigate. Basically, the ABRIS is not connected in any way to the flight controls of the computer, of the helicopter. It's completely for your benefit. It's a GPS system, which if I go to the systems menu, I can show the GPS satellite is ready. And if you go to control, actually no, GNS, you can actually see the satellites that are overhead that are inside of the sensor, and their signal strength and all that good stuff. You're never really going to need to know of this, but it's a satellite system, just like GPS in your car. And basically this map will orient with how you're flying. There's a way to change it so it doesn't. I don't remember how to do that. This is your indicating which way is north. So right now we are looking this way. And as you turn, the map will rotate, so it's always facing the direction of your flight. There's several different modes. It's in the map mode, is what I'm usually in. This is the ARC mode, which will give you some different alternative information and alternative ways to see things. This is the replicate of the HSI, the horizontal situational indicator, and the control menu. So back to the map menu, which is usually what I'm in. And if you go to map, you can change the scale, zoom in and out, that good stuff. And that's all I'm going to go into, because that's really all I remember. You can change waypoints with this button. So 2 over here, showing what I'm 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And this, I believe, is either initial or an alternate runway or something like that. And that's back to 1. Okay, so that's the very basics of the ABRS. So it'll get you around. This line is showing you the line towards the waypoint you have selected. This is the flight path that's been programmed in from this point to the waypoint. And that's really all you need to know. No, not true. I mean, it would be useful to know everything, but it's the essentials to be able to navigate with it. That's the ABRS. Let's talk about the autopilot. The autopilot and the trimming system on the Black Shark are really confusing. They take a lot of getting used to. Basically, this turns on different autopilots. Pitch and bank hold, I can't really see a reason why you'd have them off. I sometimes turn them off just to have some fun flying with the helicopter without any computer assists. But these just make the helicopter more stable, and they're good things to have on. The autopilot in general, I think, has 20% control authority over your control surfaces. So you can always override what the autopilot's trying to do, because the remaining 80% of the control authority is left to you. Heading hold is quite useful. I usually have it on. It will hold a specific heading that you can change with the trimmer, which we're going to get to. And altitude hold will hold will try to maintain a specific altitude, which you can set with this lever on the collective, which I have set to a button on my joystick right now. It's another thing to push, and after watching Frugal Sim stuff, I've been trying to get used to doing it without altitude hold on, although I've gotten into quite a few vortex spins lately with this, vortex ring states. So it's going to take a little getting used to. I got to watch my vertical speed a lot more when I'm doing aggressive stuff. Okay, that's the autopilot panel. Next, we're going to talk about the trimmer. The trimmer on the Black Shark, the trimmer on I think actually most helicopters, it's confusing to get used to. The trimmer, which I have mapped to a button on my joystick, highly recommended. I also have the reset trimmer mapped to a button on my joystick, also highly recommended. The thing to remember about the reset trimmer is the helicopter is going to buck quite a bit when you hit it. So if you're resetting the trimmer in flight, make sure you're in a safe place and be prepared to counteract the bucking to get the helicopter back under control. The trimmer basically locks the control surfaces in place and programs the heading for the heading hold. So if I move the stick, say to here, and then I push the trimmer button and release it, the stick is now locked in that position. And you can see you have to put the stick back to center, because it gives you a short window to do that, and then it starts reading the stick again, and it will just add in basically double what you had trimmed at. So you got to release that button, and when you release that button, you got to go back to center stick quickly. There's a way to adjust the time it takes. I can't remember how to do it. I haven't done it myself yet, but I think I need to lengthen it for myself. But if you Google it, I'm sure you can find it. I just ran into it. If I find it, if anybody wants, I'll find it and post it on the forum. And the reset trim, which I also have mapped, I have a modifier key on my program for my stick, which is actually a toggle right now. I'm going to see if I can paint it to push, because I don't like the toggle. I just reset. And now, unfortunately, I'm still toggled into the second layer of my control functions. And sometimes I forget about that, and it can't figure out why I can't trim the craft when I'm trying to reset it. So I'm going to see if I can make it push to hold at some point. But that's my thing. Doesn't really matter. So again, set the position, trim, release. And the stick will stay there. The same thing is true with the pedal. If I push in left pedal and trim, left pedal is now trimmed in. I now have neutral pedals and the left pedal is pushed in still. Put it back, trim. I've just trimmed the pedal state. Release all trim, reset, and everything goes back. Okay, so that's basically how the trimmer is going to be working. You're also trimming the heading in for the heading hold. Another way, so that's one way to trim. Another way to trim is you hold down the trim button. As long as the trim button is held down, the heading hold isn't going to work, and you can basically put the controls wherever you want. You're not fighting the autopilot, you're basically overriding it. But then once you let go, the state the stick is in is going to be trimmed into memory. So let go, and that state is now trimmed in. So one way to do it is to get hold the trimmer button down, get into the orientation, flight, the attitude, and flight direction you want. Then release the trimmer and neutralize everything, and the autopilot and the trim system will hold that position. That's how the trimmer works. It takes a lot of getting used to. It really does. So that's the basics of what I was going to do for the ground school. The next video I make, I will do flight. And I'm rusty, so it's going to be ugly. And I've never been good at this, and I'm rusty, so it's going to be really ugly. But we're going to do it. And that will either be tonight, or tomorrow. I'm banking on tomorrow because things came up today and I did not have as much time as I thought I did. But in any case, this is the ground school. That's it for now. Bye.